All right. Hey there. Hello, everyone. Let me get everything going. Yeah, we got everything going. Tuned into That Girl, Jenna Kirasoa on Anchor FM, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube. You can also find me on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, Blogspot. I'm currently working on a website. I'll be heading to Clubhouse and LinkedIn eventually. As always, I hope at any point in time you're consuming this content, you are doing well. Um, that's all I can hope and pray. Earlier, I put a little post up saying that I was going to be 10 minutes late on my Facebook. So I apologize for my tardiness. It's been one of those days of just information and research and content, a lot to take in. Also, I decided to just go natural today. My hair has been growing rapidly. So I'm like, hey, cool. Let me just show off some of my hair. Plus, I was working outside, getting hot and sweaty. So I just needed to definitely get myself cleaned up. So there is the look if anyone's ever wondered how my hair looks naturally. This is how it looks. So today's a special day because a lot of topics, let me just say in advance, these episodes today might be very triggering and upsetting because I have a lot of heavy information. And I have a lot of disclaimer that essentially, I'm sorry that some of these things are going to be hard to take. It's going to be upfront and realistic. And like I always say, this episode might trigger you because that's the reality that we're living in. Some of these issues are not easy to accept. And also consider if you're getting angry, if you're getting offended, maybe that's a warning that something's wrong and needs to be addressed. Like I can't control the feelings. I can just give you the information and we can take it. Some people say, oh, stay in your lane or mind your own business. I'm like, it's too late. Everyone else has already thrust themselves into my life, society, the culture. We're immersed in it. There's so much going on. Get through this little presentation. I hope you'll have more of an understanding why I care so much and why I'm not going to stop talking. Because let me just do a recap from yesterday. If you were tuned in with me yesterday, I had talked about women's treatment, what's going on with there was a picture on the California Educator. It was the birth of Venus with Rosie the Riveter combination, talking about the teachers union and needing a renaissance. People very upset with the depiction that they used with the female on there because she did not encompass enough diversity. So that was what was upsetting people. What I got from it was like it's bringing attention to another issue that needs to be discussed, which is how women are being treated. This is how it looks. A lot of people did not like it, what they posted from the editor, saying that. And then this issue right here is for August, September, Health Educator, Tools for Health and Well-Being, which is awesome, Ways to Wellness for Teachers. So that's the cover for this right here. And it says some of the quotes. Too bad the artist did not create an image of blended ethnic heritage to reflect changing demographic teachers in our population. Some of the comments. There was another one that was very important and impactful, which I'll share later after the intro. But I would talk about the health crisis that's going on, that's plaguing. Yeah, this is where we're at right now. So for today, Women's Day later on, ultimate last segment. And with that, let me go ahead and transition out of my intro. And as always, find me on TikTok, blogs, Pinterest, Twitter, Instagram, and soon I'll website up. And I'm going to be going on to Clubhouse, which is an audio type of live, and eventually get into LinkedIn. So with that, let me go ahead and continue and jump into this. And it's going to be heavy. It's honestly going to be uncomfortable. So women's health. Yesterday, some of the commenters on this was talking about how she didn't represent enough of the ethnicity and their diversity, which which I can understand. I mean, this is true. There's a lot of Black people who are educators, and Hispanic women and Native Americans, a lot of different ethnic races. What I do love about this magazine is like whenever I go through it, I'm always finding such extensive variety right here. Like I brought up this book yesterday, Good Hair. I'm sorry, Hair Love, and very, very interesting topic that I'm going to be bringing up right now. So it says, I could not help noticing that the woman does not even have her biceps contracted. She is not putting effort. She is not putting effort to go with the "We Can Do It" title on the original Rosie illustration. Her arms look weak. Why not have contracted biceps? She's not showing her strength. Like, to me, I don't. Why are you so focused on her not showing her biceps? But my issue is when I see it, I'm like, I just see an average woman. That's what it is. But more importantly, let me read another comment for the foundation, and a lot of the talking points that this individual has shared, I'm going to be bringing it up in this podcast. So this is the foundation. And this person says, I was crestfallen to see the juxtaposition of Rosie the Riveter with the birth of Venus as a representation of a renewal of different girls who helped unions in America in the early 1900s, of the pride of the Rosies had in helping the war effort and their disappointment at being ushered back into the kitchen after the war ended, of the treatment of women as property during the Renaissance, and of where equality for women stands now, which is, yes, where equality for women stands. As a young woman with who war case against females today, we don't need a renaissance for unions, tribal prince, and all women. And that is exactly where I'm at for all women extremes. But this is not trying to exclude anyone. This is speaking to all shades in between the spectrum. The two extremes. The United States likes to focus on women's health and bringing attention specifically to a crisis. And this is also something that I'm going to be speaking up as well. There is seriously a huge epidemic, loss of life specifically within the Black population, more significantly than in other races noted. But it's not to say that other races and other Hispanic or racial backgrounds, such as Hispanic, Indigenous people, Native Americans, Indians from India, American immigrants, anyone from the Middle East, Asian, Orient, Czech Republic, Caucasian, Anglo-Saxon. There's a wide variety of shades and tones. So I'm going to keep it very general and broad. And right now I'm focusing on the two extremes, which is Black and white. But women are affected by this. So please, if you feel excluded, that's not my intent. But I think after you hear the startling numbers and what's actually happening to women across the board, I hope you'll understand. Okay, so today I mentioned that Black women especially, have some of the highest mortality rates, especially post-birth. I was pulling up some articles today. Very, very, very disturbing. Black people are dying during childbirth. A new Massachusetts commission, it doesn't even matter what age, whether or not they're from a affluent background or abortion as well. And part of it is also due to mental illness, and part of it is due to, location and intro, trying to bring attention to 14% of the U.S. population. So if you just focus on women, that's roughly like, I don't even have these numbers in front of me right now. Only about I think 6%, and then they make up 36 to 40% of the abortions alive. The numbers with the Black population is stagnant, has not increased, though Hispanic women and Black. So it's fascinating to me that despite having strong fertility and high numbers of abortions, high industry is also higher in women of different ethnicities. So to me, it's kind of alarming that despite the progress that everyone claims that we're making, these numbers are just atrocious. Okay, here, I pulled up this article right here. Lost mothers, maternal mortality rate in the United States. Black mothers keep dying after giving birth. Shalon Irving's story explains why. And this came out December 2017. It was first heard on All Things Considered. It's coming from npr.org. I'll put all the links in the overview. So much more affected than other races in the country, you know. And she herself ended up dying of a stroke after having her first child. So it's very, very depressing and concerning. Like, why is this happening? She's very, very educated. She was a researcher. She was very respected and esteemed in her position, you know, and she still fell a victim to this epidemic, you know. So one of the things that they bring up is this term called weathering, which is essentially wearing you down, like through the focus, through if you experience racism, you know, that is something that plagues on your subconscious and it's affecting you and your mental health, which always affects your physical health. It catches up. You're competing against men who have a masculine state of mind. So that's pressure in itself. The United States is not a very forgiving or patient country. So that additional stress. And then just honestly, the biological makeup. People don't like to talk about that's why I said, apologize if I'm offending you, but people don't want to talk about the genetic differences within the races. And it does affect women much differently, you know, comparing health, a man versus a woman, the health needs to be treated differently. And then Black women versus white women or any other race. There's something about the way that our body responds, whatever you want to call it. Essentially, though, you know, exclusive to people of color. And the treatment in the healthcare system is not very, I guess, conducive or doesn't mesh well with our genetic makeup. Definitely, I think when we talk about how do we combat some of these things, doulas are very, very popular, and we're coming out, you know, more of a demand because we're seeing like these Western medicine in the hospital system is not productive for thriving lives and for nurturing our children and nurturing our mothers. Another issue that I was going to bring up too, interestingly enough, let me go back to the history because I had to close all the tabs. Too many tabs open, and I know it's probably going to mess up my stream on YouTube, but that's okay. We're going to get the information we need. So I pulled up another article about SID, sudden infant death syndrome, and premature birth, notable decline. So what I find interesting about that is a lot of women had to go home and, you know, and rest because they couldn't work during the pandemic. And lo and behold, they discovered that premature births dropped and sudden infant death syndromes dropped notably to the point where everyone's like, okay, this is a thing we can take note of and bring up the stats. So we talk about helping women seems to, I don't know, they would benefit from extra rest and better. Oftentimes, that's what's happening. So again, why I'm here talking about it, why I care so much, there's a reason why women, especially Black women, are suffering, why they're dying. They're being overworked, overstressed, dying of strokes, hypertension, diabetes, different things like that are just, it's a huge crisis, an epidemic. And going back to the issue I brought up yesterday with this image here, people complaining that she's a white woman and she's got golden hair. Well, two things about that. One, I have two biological daughters. My daughters that came out of me, that passed through me, they have pale skin. They could pass because of their skin. All right, they have very, very light, fair skin, and they both have colored eyes, and they have the same type of hair I do. You know, they took after their father, who has Irish descent on both sides. So my daughters do not have hair like me. They have colored eyes, but I have ethnic traits and roots in my DNA, and so for you to, I guess, go off of skin color, I think is doing a disservice, especially when we talk about inclusion and diversity. Everyone's important. We just need to focus on genders right now and overall, we're not being treated well. And because she's so pale and she's so Caucasian, well, there is a crisis happening within the white community as well. Across the board, they have the lowest fertility rates. They are out. I think the fertility rate's highest is in I think it's in Pacific Islanders or I need to pull up the article. Sorry, the connection is not. It's like, well, it's working. It's just all my tabs got closed right before I started my live, so fortunately I'm a little bit unorganized. But like I said, I have a lot to talk about. This is just the intro. I'm just barely scratching the tip of the surface. I go too far off topic. Like, again, this is one of the reasons why you cannot just go off the skin color, because you got some people from Puerto Rico who look really, really light. You have people from where else was I gonna, are they from? I'm just drawing all these blanks right now. Sweden, Amsterdam. Like, there's so many like different cultures and countries and races and ethnic backgrounds and blendings of flesh and tone colors, and it's like, at a certain point, we're kind of like we're getting caught up too much into the labels and some putting everyone into subgroups and categories. I'm like at the point, I titled this segment, "Are You Deaf Proof?" Because it seems as if we're so obsessed with tearing down one another and putting everyone into different boxes and categories and isolating ourselves and, not realizing that at a certain point, it's just the average person versus a person who has a lot more money, a lot more power, a lot more control. That's really who we need to be competing, I guess, if you want to compete with anyone. It's us versus them. It's old school, rich versus poor. That's it. And we want to talk about systemic racism. And it's true. Everyone has an agenda right now. People are trying to survive. I came across this cute little children's book. For those who are on my podcast, listening, you cannot see it. It's called Diggersaurus by Michael White, Waite, Michael White, called Diggersaurus. And I'm not going to go too far into it, but I'm sure many people can assume why I would be a little bit, interested in this little book. Little children's book. I'm not quite sure what you're trying to imply there. Could be nothing, could be something. At this point, I don't care. I care about living. I care about other people living. And if you aren't on the same page of us, preserving life and building strong families and building our country better and making our country great again, which is strong family units, if you're not okay with that, then we're going to have a problem. I don't really care what your race is. I don't care what your ethnic background is. I don't care what country you're from. If we're living here, we're supposed to, in the words we use, coexist, get along, work together. And that is, we need to do that with all genders and all races and ethnic backgrounds, and there's so much. This is, again, just the intro. I will probably have to do a series because I'm just touching the surface. We can get down into some heavy stuff. Like, why is this happening? One of the things, though, the woman I mentioned from the NPR article, Miss Irving was her last name. Let me get her last name. Beautiful, talented, strong Black woman right here, still a victim. Her name is Shalon Irving, and this is her story. She was researching this. And one of the things that I noticed was she was so adamant about making sure she had the best people in her community, in her village, to help her raise her daughter, and the help with her mother. Fortunately, though, this is a very, very common theme. It doesn't even matter how much money you make. She was still, the father was still not there. And that's part of one of the contributing factors. If a woman, especially Black women, and if they have to be a single mom, work and take care of other children and try to compete in this competitive world, it affects you. It really tears you down. And that's what we're seeing. Women are stressed out. They're angry. They're hurt. they're not getting cared for, they're getting butchered, they're getting ignored and dismissed. A lot of stuff going on. And some people are like, well, if you guys weren't, like angry, that's the stereotype. We're always so angry. Well, I don't know. I think if you realize, you pay attention to what's being told to us subconsciously through the systemic racism. When I say systemic racism, I'm focused on bigger institutions, especially, this is what I'm talking about. This is going to probably piss a lot of people off, but it is what it is. I can't sugarcoat it anymore. I'm like, how can you be okay with abortion when our population is not growing? Like, we have the highest abortion rate, but it's one of the smaller populations in the country. Black women make up a small population. When I went to high school, I think I was, believe it or not, my school has a large community population. So a good community out there. There's, the Hmongs. There's Filipinos I grew up with. There, of course, Caucasians, white people. Who else was there? There's a lot of natives here, indigenous people. I've been afforded the opportunity to travel and live in Europe, Italy for a few years. As a child, I don't really remember. So from, my family, I got to see all shades of the rainbow, the flesh tone rainbow. I got to experience different cultures. I've been to India, thankfully. I spent a little bit of time in the Russian airport, so I got a little bit of exposure to Russians. And I must say, like, what it comes down to at the end of the day, like, I'm really having a hard time seeing the difference in the humanity. We all exhibit the same characteristics. If something's funny, we laugh. We just have natural things. We conduct ourselves differently and govern ourselves differently, of course, and that's where a lot of the conflict comes in. And then also self-preservation. Where are you coming from? Like, the way people think and process information sometimes is determined about where your location was. If you were living in a tropical climate and you had all access to food and you didn't have to worry so much about serving or saving and preserving, you're the critical thinking aspect of, like, about those things as much. So your system of life and operation is different. Your response to things is different. You can be a lot more flexible. There's people who have been living in extreme heat. I know with the Egyptians and their architectural abilities to grow their food and use the canals and the rivers and how to get water, and amazing. Just, they had to survive. They had to be very, very industrious. About, German engineering and industrialization, how they work, and the people in Russia, when the places are cold and you have to save and gather your resources. You can't just go out the house or out your shelter and get away or go relax. You have to learn how to work together quickly and get over problems and efficiently. So when we talk about German engineering, some of it is probably had to do with the climate. Like, you need something to work, and it needs to work right. So that can be maybe attributed to why we see them as a little bit more rigid and a little bit more hardened and structured, because if you're living in a cold climate or a hot climate, like, it was in Egypt, it's like you have to be organized. You have to think and figure out a best system that's going to be effective and beneficial for everyone in the community. So to me, it's not about white or black anymore. It's about, like, what's the best system that's going to be butchered. There's other diseases and ailments that affect. There's so many things to look into and to research and understand. But ultimately, though, there's an epidemic where women are getting killed and butchered, and everyone's getting hurt. The crisis of cancer, certain places I keep hearing about, oh, this person's cancer free, this person had their first day of radiation. I'm hearing it in my community. I'm like, I have no idea. So many people were being affected by this. It's like, what's going on? So I'll be talking about it, I guess, when I look at this, and the person who made that wonderful comment, we need a revolution for unions and for all women. This is what I'm talking about. Like, it's, women are designed to, like, as much as feminists don't like to hear it, You don't want to be shoved back into the kitchen. You don't want to be told you can't do this, you can't go here, you have to do this. No one wants to be told that. And the thing is, though, so why are we still seeing such high numbers of mental illness, high numbers of abortion, high numbers of mortality deaths, postpartum deaths, and infertility rates, and the number for births and across the world is declining. One of the things that I like to bring up on my Facebook page and on my TikTok pages is pictures of nature. I absolutely love seeing the world through the pictures, through photography. All of my wallpapers usually have a nature scene, trees, things growing, a lot of open, expansive emptiness. The reason why I bring up this is because a lot of people say we're overpopulated. No, the world is not overpopulated. That is a smaller population. It's easier to control. I'm just going to say it. Like, people don't want to hear it. But if you are living in an inner city, if you're living in the projects, if you're living in an apartment complex, if you're living, like in the slums or in a ghetto, or that, again, that's another topic. You want to talk about systemic racism? Those projects and stuff, the government would offer assistance to single mothers and children. They wouldn't offer it to families. A lot of times, fathers, out of lack of work, would have to go elsewhere to work, and then they would have the family staying there in these projects and these apartment complexes, because the government to dismantle the family unit and get the father out of the home through these things. You want to talk about systemic racism? That's part of it. But again, if you are just living in that environment your entire life, with the cities and the skyscrapers, constant movement, hustle, bustle, and you don't see any other part of the country or the world, you're going to believe what they're saying, that the world's overpopulated. And I'm telling you, love your families, grow your families, take care of one another, love on one another, and stop arguing and bickering back and forth. It's of course easier said than done. Everything's in theory right now. But I have to let people know, especially women of color, like, abortion is not your friend. It's like they've put this seed in destruction and lies, trying to convince us that our children are better off dead. Like, instead of offering actual practical help, it's like, no, you're better off dead. And then they don't even realize that, women of color are more affected by, sexual assaults and being pulled into sex work. And it's a vicious cycle. And we haven't even touched the psychological damage that comes with abortion. And people just say, oh, it's fine. It's just normal. It's just normal. I'm like, dude, part of my story, I've had a couple, and I'm telling you, it is not okay. 2 in 1 year, 10 years ago, and it is still affecting me to this day. I still think about it. There's still, not think about it as in dwelling on it. I'm seeing people still falling into the same trap after I said, hey, you know what? This is getting us caught up in bigger problems than we even realize. People say, oh, mind your own business, or you don't know how it's this, that, and the other. I'm like, it's like, no, I'm not going to, because I'm trying to reveal to you what is happening to the U.S. population. Numbers are dwindling. It's happening all over the West, and we're hurting women in the long run. We are, what is the expression, like not cutting our feet out from under us, something like that. We're thinking we're so empowered, we're so sexually liberated, we have all these choices. It's like, not really. They're giving you the illusion that you have choice. The choice is, this is pretty much accept the lies. If not, you're a weirdo. And I've already talked so much on this subject, and I haven't. There's more. Let me go ahead and transition, because I could spend the rest of the night. But the next subject is going to home a little bit harder. It's going to be a little bit more difficult. So brace yourself. Brace yourself. We talk about empowerment. We talk about women's rights. Let's actually seriously take care of our women. I don't understand what is so difficult about this. trying to convince people like killing your children is not a good option. Like, it's in the long run, it's not going to be good for us. It's not going to be good for the women at all. So that is just, sorry, putting my little notes in really fast. But now for the next one, because I know people are not going to like this one either. I talked about the health crisis. So let me talk more about the reality that women are facing today. It's similar, but it's a little bit different. Now I'm going to be speaking directly to the men out there. The men who are, maybe I shouldn't use the word men. Maybe I should just use the word males. And I know there's a lot of females out there who have terrible toxic traits, who are evil she-devils, who are just bound, set, and determined to destroy a man. Yes, those women are out there who are preying on men. There are sexual predators and pedos in that field. So yes, let me put the disclaimer. I'm aware, man. I'm aware. There's got some crazy women out there. But as a woman, from my experience and from what I've been hearing from other women and researching online, what I'm seeing is something that I saw back when I was out on kids. I was like, dude, I can't, it's not fair. You have the whole thing where it's like, guys is always in desperate need of company of a man. So guys will always have access to someone, compared to the average woman who reaches a certain point in her life, whether it's through age or whether it's like she's not attractive enough or whether or not she's had too many past experiences or encounters, whatever it is, guys are quick to at all. Like, you guys really are that much of like, I can't even right now. I need a little break before I get myself too triggered right now, because I'm triggering myself thinking about this, because that's the reality. That's I said it's titled Women's Reality. Men don't want. Some places call them the leftover men, whatever. They complain and complain and complain, and there's valid reasons. I'm not even gonna dismiss all of your claims. There are some women out there who took the fourth wave feminist thing hardcore. And they were liberated, and they wanted to do whatever they wanted to do. Take, for example, there's now, I think if it's OkCupid, I posted it on my Facebook, and that you can get a dating app badge that says that you are pro-choice. And if a guy, people are very, very responsive right now, receptive to those badges. It's actually like, okay, cool. You're more than the pregnancy would just be gotten taken care of. It would just go away. You would just have an abortion. So what's frustrating, like the last resort for medical emergencies, but now we're looking at it for, preventative type thing. I mean, no, it's not preventative. It's we're already taking preventative measures. We're already securing that if there's a pregnant, what happened to, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. This whole thing, like, oh, women's choice, we care about women. Guys, let me just say, this is what I'm talking about. I'm going to piss some people off because I'm pissing myself off. It makes me so mad. You know why? This is the reality. Do you know why men, especially CEOs, women, independent, liberated women who can go work in the corporate world, right? Most CEOs are men. They love abortion. You know why? Either I have to be short-staffed or I got to find someone else to fill your spot. Abortion is a lot cheaper and a lot more effective, and for productivity. So, and then also the history of oh my God, making myself mad. The word choice, it used to mean choice to keep baby. At one point in time, women mistresses were forced into abortions. Because let me add some more to this argument, because there's just so much. I'm taking notes. The lack of accountability. Once upon a time, if there was a married couple and the husband had an affair and cheated, like it was certain cultures, this thing where, the resentment, like where oftentimes we're the ones who are committed. We're the ones who are there with our man or the man through lack of choice because of this society. I don't know what the technical term is or the type of era. the society where it was physical labor, men had to work, women were limited to more of the hunter or the gathering type thing, lighter label, lighter labor, not as physically demanding, just simply due to the lack of technology and options for women. It's not a happy, glamorous history, but it is part of our history. A lot of times we did not have choices. Women did not have choices. So it's just, again, frustrating that a guy could have his concubines. He had to, because women were forcing themselves on the men, saying like, please take us, we need shelter, pretty much. Or guys the demographic commentator mentioned that the sexual revolution wasn't actually, that was what the sexual revolution was about, and rejecting the whole thing where you have to stay at home. So, well, they got their wish. It worked because women are very sexually liberated. Now we're discovering, though, they're not treating us equally. It's still the same. Our natures are different. There's a reason why there's a difference in the sexes, but no one wants to talk about those details. We want to assume every perspective. He says that men and women are not equal, and he feels that women are above men and they should be put on a pedestal. And I'm like, I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Cherry. He feels that women are above men. That is so humbling to hear, that someone actually could see the girls are all given masculine names, like, what was it, Uriel, Raphael, Michael, can't remember the other one. Masculine names, masculine pronouns. And he made man first, and then he took woman out of the body of the rib, if you believe all that stuff of Ray Charles. Is it Ray Charles or James Brown? Oh my God. Dude, forgive me. This is a man's world. To an extent, yeah, that's what it's looking like if we're just going over the course of history, because right here, this was brought up, and one of the comments was, I'm sorry, for my podcast listeners, the California educator, the Union Renaissance, a new day for educator activism. This is from the July 2021, volume 25, issue 6, with the Rosie the Riveter image and the Birth of Venus hybrid combination. And the comments here, just regarding, we need a revolution for unions and for all women. Just looking at that for women. And I'm to the point where I'm like, okay, have we not learned? Like, we're still getting butchered with abortion, told that it's our choice. Like from the OK Cupid app, they're using a Black woman, and it's a psychological warfare, okay? One of the tactics that if you want to talk about systemic racism and how they put you down, they make you feel bad and lesser because they don't want to admit how vulnerable they are around you. They don't. So it's easier to keep you guys feeling why Black women, especially in this country, are experiencing such high mortality rates postpartum. It's like they're burning themselves out physically, emotionally, mentally, and their bodies just can't keep up, dude. And we haven't even talked about, childhood. It's like, where is this information coming from, and why is it so physically damaging in the long run? So when I talk about systemic racism, that's part of it. It's like the diets, the location that people are placed to live, where abortion facilities take place, and the fact that they want to say that it rights and reproduction. It's like, and they don't really offer many sources. Like if I could honestly see Planned Parenthood, having the option of like caring for the mothers and giving them support alongside it, I would say, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You're planning for parenthood, but the title doesn't make any sense. And gosh, I have to talk about it. It has to. The reality is, we talk about women's issues, and we talk about the racism in the country and then into the eugenics program. And okay, I'm just gonna say disclaimer. I'm gonna say it. Birth control, you know, control right there. Being a symptom, we're not really addressing a bigger problem in society and community. What is the objective? And I'm not trying to sit here and say, at this point in time, looking at everything, the country is just doing whatever it wants, which is cool at this point, whatever. That's the way people want to live. I'm not going to argue anymore. There's no point. But please realize that everyone's individual rights, individual happiness, and individual or this episode, are you death proof? The reason why I bring up death proof, I love my Quentin Tarantino. I love my Robert Rodriguez and I have a difficult relationship. I don't like female nudity in films, to be honest, unless it's like absolutely like necessary or very, very accurate, and it's done respectfully, not just for the sake of like shock. Let me take a little side funny trail. I don't know if you've seen Django, Quentin Tarantino's Django with Jamie Foxx and Kerry Washington. I forgot the other gentleman who speaks German in that film. And Samuel L. Jackson, great cast. But there's a scene where Kerry Washington is pulled out of this this torture contraption. She's in this box sweating all day in the heat, and they take her out. She's not wearing any clothes. It's kind of like whoa, but at the same time, like you really get the true meaning, and like you can see how it was and how harsh and cruel that the history of slavery and those plantations were, and the Mandingo fights. And another example, if you've seen Gangs of New York with Butcher, one of the scenes in his, I guess, his hangout spot, he's got a couple of chicks hanging out with him in the bed. That's the kind of character he was, and they did a good job, exhibiting that. But with Rodriguez, it tends to be for shock and entertainment for a certain audience. So, again, not my cup of tea, but I do like the violence and I do like the storytelling. So I'm going to put my Halloween movie push out there already. Check out Grindhouse, a double feature with star-studded cast. There's Terror, and then there's Death Proof. So I'm bringing up Death Proof because it has Kurt Russell in it, Rosario Dawson, Rose McGowan, and other great cast of ladies. And ultimately, there's this guy who's kind of shady. Some stuff happened. I'm about that life right now where I'm tired of seeing women getting screwed with and getting taken advantage of, and past encounters or whatever. People don't want to deal with it. It's like, please, like we not. I really thought we were. I was looking at the world through rose-colored glasses for a long time. I really was, between being youthful and trying to go out there in the dating scene, and then now current era. If anything, it's probably worse. So what's Death Proof right there, dude? It's like, are you really complimenting one another? We're battling with the sexes. Women are experiencing the harsh reality of the world and how it really is. This is kind of going off of this woman's, like I said, it's going to be kind of a long stream. What was it? Stevenson is the last name. Let me go back to part of the quote. It says, right here. I'll just read it off. Okay. It shows a lack of understanding of the ferocity of the young immigrant girls who helped start unions in America in the early 1900s, of the pride in the Rosies had in helping the war effort, and their disappointment at being ushered back into the kitchen after the war ended, of the treatment of women as property during the Renaissance, and of where equality for women stands now. It's like, yeah, that's a heavy paragraph right there, because it's like, I'm looking back and like it's like, either you're single or you run the risk of being taken advantage of by men, or you run the risk of getting into a marriage where you don't have really any freedom or any options or any rights, and you're just pretty much used, a used car. You produce all of these great results. I recently came across this woman who was sharing her story, a testimonial. She is currently in a woman of color. She's living in Germany, and she's very, very talented, but she's going through a lot of problems because she's experiencing the racism there. She's like, I learned the language, I'm educated, I'm working, and I'm still being treated like lesser because I'm a woman and a woman of color. And it's like, at a certain point, it's like, we were appreciated, we were valued. But no, look at instead. You get, for my podcast listeners who cannot see what I'm holding up, this book called Diggersaurus by Michael White. Big and tough, strong and helpful. Meet the Diggersaurus, all 12 of them. Yeah, that's kind of how it feels. Like we're just tools. We're appliances. We're labor. Yeah, that's what it feels like, especially with women. And as much as I'd love to say this is a great country, you have the freedom to pursue happiness. Is it going to be easy? Do they make it easy? Realistically, not. No, it's come to the point. No, it's not easy. It's difficult, and it's so much more difficult. And looking at all the trends that's been going on in the country, my biggest argument is women, please stop falling for the psychological games that a lot of males play that, making you feel so dependent on them, like you have nothing else, whether it's a physical dependency. I know with the sex work and everything, that it really gets into your head. It becomes your normal, it becomes your everyday. And it's like, it's become, it is a trap. And then when you have abortion layered onto that, that adds another layer of mental illness. And you're a broken person, and you're caught up whether, if you have problems with addictions, if you are trying to compete in a working world, trying to survive, it's gonna mess with you. And that's part of you talk about the systemic racism, the psychological trap, the conditioning, the programming, telling us like, oh, you're just angry. And when I talk about Make America Great Again, and even Joe Biden's Build Back Better, it needs to be with men and women working together, complementing one another. It's not going to work if we're still fighting. And a guy are over here like, oh, well, she's like used up. It's like, wow. Like, can you see why you got some she-devils trying to kill you? Can you see why you got some crazy, like, angry Black women who are just tired and fed up? A lot of these people there, a lot of these women, their entire life, they've been just expected to perform and be used for someone else's benefit, like whether it's through like labor or work or whatever. Some of these poor women have like that's their entire existence, and men are like, oh, well, they're this, that, and the other, and I'm just like, what do you? It's too much. Like I said, I'm going to have to break this down and do more of a series because I have not even done my third segment yet. So with that being said, the reality that women are living in, let me just recap really fast. Like, it's not the best, it's not the happiest, and especially in this country where we have all these great opportunities that we were supposedly told about, but then we actually look at it and it's like, it's not good enough, or we were given the wrong information, or we were convinced that this is the best route in our life. And if we go back to this, we give some men the credit that is due to them. It's very, very important. I'm very, very adamant to give credit where credit is due. Let me just add my little side note really fast. There's so much going on in the world, so many things changing. Let me end it on a happy note, though. Many hardworking men out there who love their families, who love their country, who love women and are protectors, and they do not at all, support abortion. They do not at all support abusing women. Like I said before, another men and women, we still are going to need strong men. And we still need to respect men, especially the ones who actually do care. Because if we keep looking for women out there, those ones eventually are going to just stop. We've already seen record numbers where men are like, that's what happens when we are just led astray by the world, because we're, instead of complimenting, we're competing. And what it ends up happening is men don't even want to get into a relationship. They would rather pay for a sex worker, a prostitute, and just get whatever they need, and then boop, go. That's what it's turned into with the fourth wave feminism and the sexual liberation. That is what has enabled, like, give a little bit of attention, a little bit, and then next thing you know, like, I got what I wanted, and then there's another one, and then there's another one, and then that's pretty much what you've turned it into. So I cannot blame all men, because some of them are just like, that is what has been displayed to them. That's what a lot of women have given the men. And they're like, okay, well, that's what women aren't serious about relationships or settling down. They just want to get something and go like a man. The California educator mentions, like, women don't want to be ushered back into the kitchen. We want to be able to be out there and doing our things. And I'd rather have sex with no consequences than an abortion if I get pregnant. That's what men are told. They're like, okay, so you just want to get yours. You don't want to start a family. And if you get pregnant, you plan to get an abortion, and you've had a lot of action, and you just seem like you're concerned about having fun. So I can see, again, I've said it before, I can see why some men are genuinely confused. But let me take it next level. A lot of women like to bash men, and I think I did a pretty good job bashing them earlier because of the history and this fact that a lot of men are like, hey, we're going to save money with abortion. But as I'm complaining and I'm living in a house. I remember watching this house being built, and I do not remember seeing any women on the construction crew. I'm not saying that there aren't female construction workers. Please don't get into that. Like, I know women can be strong. I know women are strong. I know that they can build houses, and they are, whatever a man can do, a woman can do it. I get that. But I'm just saying, though, if we're going off of the generalities, construction is done by men. And I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Like, personally, like, thank God, because, like, I'm not going to box. I like being in the library, hanging out in the air conditioning. And again, I'm just going to assume that a group of men built the schoolhouse that I went to, built, the library that I'm hanging out at. I'm assuming that the roads that I drive on, probably 80% of them were men. And someone had the genius idea to have a road signs, and instead of having to stop, it's a constant flow of cars. Great. Genius. I remember when they put one into my community, and when they built the new Costco in my area, they built another one. And I watched them work. I would drive by and on the highway, watching these people put the bricks in there, watching them. I don't know what they're doing. They're like smoothing the concrete out and like planting trees and stuff and making it look nice. Like, I appreciate that. Like, I respect that. And it's either hot or cold, and you're out there working, like electrical work. Have you ever heard of a journeyman? Have you ever heard of those people that go up crazy stuff to fix things? All right. There is some extreme work out there. Have you seen those people on those lobster boats? There's this one dude that I was following on TikTok, and like, he has his live going on, and he's like on a boat catching lobsters and stuff. I'm like, dang, are the crab king people, deep sea fishers, like Navy personnel, military, a lot of it in the history is of men. Men do defend and protect their the car. What else is there that men have things that they've done wrong? Let's go back to really fast to childbirth really fast. I saw a question asked about do you prefer a male or a female gynecologist for women? So here, I don't think men should be at all involved in this. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't want it. I don't want a guy. And then I got to a point where I'm like, I had to realize a lot of people, especially there's men who work in that industry, in that particular field or specialty, a lot of them really just love children, and they do want to see a baby born, and that it's a miracle, and for them that is like the most important thing you can do. I've had a male doctor who, when I was pregnant with my last, he asked what the child's name was, and I told him the name, and it's like he referred to the baby, the unborn child, by the child's name. So that's very admirable. There are men out there who this is just a biological thing, nothing more than that. So I learned to respect that, trying to pull some weeds, and those roots were in there deep. So I'm taking it with my hands and the little tools and slowly pulling it out, and using my little effort. My husband comes with the hoe, and he just starts hacking it away and unearthing, and then just tearing up the dirt. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we're good, and we're pulling that stuff out, and you got the yard looking well wrecked right now, man. I got to come back and huge dirt pile that looks gross. But the weeds came out. So when we talk about things like that, C-section, for example, natural birth, the number of C-sections have gone up significantly, and a lot of it has to do with time. The waiting process it varies, and a lot of people are not very patient. And if you're going into a more of a busier hospital, the chances of you having a natural birth, allowing your body to do what it does naturally, and women to come alongside you and help the process, it's like, no, efficiency, time, C-sections, that number is increased. And then also you have an increase of infection, and then follow-up appointments. A lot of women of color living are scheduled within a specific time frame. Again, many example, and I was told to go see my research about how women are treated in different parts of the country, and they're not seeing their doctors post C-section for weeks after. And I'm like, what? What is going on? Why would you not see a doctor right after having a huge incision? That's a problem. I could see if it was a natural birth, but in a C-section, you need to have, you have your doctor check it out, especially if it's your first and you don't know what to expect. But nope, a lot of the women are not getting checked out, and then they're having infections, and that's causing more death, and people don't know how to talk about it. And sometimes they didn't even need the C-section. So here we're talking about civic racism. Just bringing that up. Just the differences of the sexes and how their minds operate. So as far as men, I know that they're out there who really, really love children, and they care about women. Okay, cool. And then there's the thing where, like I said, men have done a lot to advance medicine, internet, obviously, automobile. Even I believe there was an Indian man who was one of the first people who developed, essentially the tampon for, women's time of month. He saw his wife was frustrated with her cycle, and he wanted to help with her with the problems. So a lot of these things are coming, and the inventions and the benefits that we have are genuinely, they were developed by men to help the women, to build, fix our roofs, to work in the extreme conditions, because they can, as women, again, give credit where credit is due. And whether or not they deserve it, whether or not, I'm to the point where, you just got to give respect. Even though they got some terrible males out there, you got some dogs. A lot of people don't deserve it, but again, they get low. We, I don't know, we go up for something, we raise our standards. Yeah, we're going to raise our standards. We're going to raise the bar. And we're also going to acknowledge and give credit to the good, hard, strong, working men who love their families, who love women, who love protecting, who love God, who love their country. They're out there still. And please, please be empathetic if you can, more compassionate and flexible with many women, especially many Black women who've gotten a short end of the deal, who don't have the strong supporting fathers in the house. This has been happening for decades, where they found ways to get fathers out of the homes, whether it's the criminal justice system, whether it's with the projects where the government will offer assistance to women and children and not to men. It's loving one another, giving credit where credit is due, and being very forgiving, and get through this crisis, because we have a serious health crisis going on. And I've barely scratched the surface. There's still more things to talk about. But let me go ahead and transition off of here and do my little closing, because Lordy knows we could talk for hours. There's so much stuff going on right now. So with that, let me just do a recap, because I think this is probably going to be one of my longest streams, really fast. So women's reality is, man, we're still getting treated like crap. Like men have their expectations and standards for women. It feels as if we really can't be ourselves. Everyone says, "Oh, equal rights, women's rights." It's like, well, or you make too much money, or whatever. It's really frustrating. Like, I'm hearing these stories where guys have their high body count and they're still going to get someone, where the woman who exact same thing on the on written form, and that seems to be the course of history. I brought up the cover again from California Educator. So with my closing, I'm going to talk more about this issue that came out September 2021, volume 26, issue 1, Tools for Health and Well-Being, Ways to Wellness. Regular exercise, fresh air, walk more, keep regular hours, get enough sleep, reduce stress and relaxation, meditation, or peace of mind. That is going to be the hardest one, giving someone a peace of mind, despite realizing how the harsh reality, but it can be done. Healthy diet, more fruits and vegetables, social, emotional learning for you to. So, like I said, probably be talking more about the preventative things and remedies, and how we can possibly turn some of these problems around and bring out the best in everyone. Women of all races. I talked about the health crisis, specific to them. I encourage you to research and look up more of that. And throughout the next coming weeks, I will continue to pull out more articles and stuff and say, and sources, we need to really take care of our women and our health and get these problems, addressed. Like I said before, Black men, high mortality rates, postpartum, highest abortion rates despite small population. I don't know how that's liberating or freeing or not racist. Pretty much saying your children's revamped and dismantling them. Frustrating. And then, honestly, though, despite has treated women over the years and over the course of mankind, treatment of women, I still respect the patriarchy. I understand that there is, if you look at the Egyptian pyramids, why is it a pyramid? If you look at the Trinity and the Holy Spirit and God and Jesus, look at the Bible, why is there God in 3 persons plus a Trinity? I don't know. It is what it is. Like, there's just a system. And instead of fighting it, be like, okay, I'm going to give you credit where credit is due. And I'm going to bring up my concerns. And I'm going to act accordingly. I'm going to be respectful. I'm going to act in love. I'm going to treat you with respect. And all of that stuff. Because it's just like, what's the point in continuing to war? Like, are you death proof? Look, that's why I keep saying, are you death proof? Because you people over here acting like you're gonna live forever. You're acting as if like it doesn't matter. Everyone's like, oh, don't worry about it. It's like, I'm tired of seeing people hurt unnecessarily. I'm watching people like, it's not my business. Who cares? But I'm like, do you know you're being lied to? Do you know that we're not overpopulated? Do you know that we should actually be having more children? We're actually heading to. Did you know that SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, and premature births went down during the pandemic across the world? Everyone, researchers noted from different countries that the premature birth rates went down. So babies were being born and they weren't dying as much post birth. Isn't that interesting to you? Like maybe women shouldn't be working and stressing themselves out. Maybe they need more rest. Maybe they should be taking better care of, like, Don Cherry, the commentator, the pedestal. And I'm like, yeah, I think so too, because like we're the ones that carry the new life. And why is it all the Bible stuff? Most of the angels are given masculine pronouns. Why did God even create Eve? And then when I look at the picture right here, the birth of Venus, I'm like, why are men so obsessed with female artwork and looking at the female anatomy, and why are we sought after in such high demand? Women out there, there's this common trope that they keep bringing up. Can't turn a hoe into a housewife, things like that. And I'm like, dude, that's what I'm talking about, that psychological warfare, trying to get into your head and bring your character down. It's like, you can turn it around, change your standards, raise the expectations now. There are really, really good men out there, but there are also a lot of them out there who just are taking full advantage of the opportunity. Wanted you out of the kitchen, okay? This is the thing where it's hard. It really is. Like, would you rather be in the kitchen with one man, safe and sound, or would you want other men to take you out of the kitchen so they can take advantage of you? Is it fair? This is what we're talking about. Like, this is why we're having this conversation. We got to figure it out. We got to do better. Love everyone, respect everyone. We need to empower the women in destructive. Because like I said, there are evil women out there and there are evil men out there. Let's all of us just choose to be better. Every race, every creed, like I said before, I don't want to exclude any racial background. Like, I just usually go for the two polar opposites, black, white. There's so many different shades of the rainbow in between, and everyone has their cause that they're fighting for, or they have abortion affects women severely in a negative way, and it's not good for the family unit at all. And it's like where you guys are leftover women and you're not appreciated or respected as well. And I appreciate who's ever listened to me thus far. If you listen to this entire stream, thank you. If you kind of fast forward, I understand, because like there's a lot to take in. I probably will not have the outline done, and by tomorrow, sure, on the podcast, I'd like to have sources available for you, as well as on blogspot.com. If you cannot get access to the audio for whatever reason, this information needs to be documented. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time on it, let you know how serious this issue is to the country and to me especially. Again, you've tuned into that girl, Jenna Carasola, on Anchor FM. I've been in Pinterest, and I'll be working on my website as well as getting on LinkedIn. And if you haven't heard of Clubhouse, I will be getting onto Clubhouse and doing more audio from there, and probably less video, but all in good time. Again, at any point in time you're consuming this content, thank you very much. I hope you're doing well, and if not, for that, I apologize. If you can take nothing from this, if I've wasted your time, I'm sorry. I apologize. And with that, I will leave you, and have a good evening, day, night, morning. God's peace. Thank you.